here is your host, Jen Lada.
Welcome into Motor Bar and Restaurant at the Harley Davidson Museum. We are live as we are for most Thursdays during the basketball season. Enjoy great food and drink specials all night long, and make sure to join us the next time we get together on February 27th. That's when Sean Jones will be here to join us at Motor Bar and Restaurant. All right, it was a big week for Marquette as they lost 3 in a row. We won't talk a ton about that this evening with head coach Shaka Smart. We will talk about the big victory over DePaul, 68-58 earlier this week. Cam Jones had 19 points, moved into 3rd place on Marquette's career scoring list as the 18th-ranked Golden Eagles snapped their 3-game skid. We'll talk to head coach Shaka Smart about Cam Jones, what that means in the grand scheme of the history of Marquette basketball. You saw a familiar face on the broadcast as well, as Tom Crean was the analyst for Peacock this week. I got to watch some video of Coach Crean talking to the guys. We'll talk to head coach Shaka Smart about that as well. Good to see you, Coach. How you doing tonight?
What's up, Jen?
Good to chat with you. Going to be a good show. Let's start with the game against DePaul, another familiar foe for you guys. It was a tough, hard-fought battle the first time you guys got together this year, and this time your team took the victory handily towards the end. What did you like most about your performance against DePaul this week?
I just liked that our guys had a singular focus, helping each other win. Obviously, we've been on the wrong end of it for a few games, and that's not something that you ever want a player or a team to get used to. Our guys, they have a lot of pride in our program that for granted. We talked
about Cam Jones a moment ago, 3rd all-time in scorers. You said you're a history guy. You love the history of Marquette basketball. Put that accomplishment into perspective for us.
Aren't you supposed to be on that show, Jen?
Usually on Wednesdays.
On Wednesdays, okay. You told me you were on around the horn, and then I see it on the TV.
Yeah.
No, I think Cam, what he's doing is really, really special. I take a page out of Mike Tomlin's book. I'm not surprised, but I appreciate it. This is what we've come to expect from Cam. I believe he has even another notch in him in terms of all-around play. But, man, to see him up there in the scoring list among the lights of George Thompson and, Jarrell McNeil, and I don't know if anyone's ever going to catch Marcus. But it's interesting, Jen, there's a guy in the back of the restaurant here when they kind of flashed that graphic up of Cam the other day at being at, close to 2,000 points. I turned to him and I said, "You could do that." He kind of looked at me like I was crazy.
Why do you think Royce could do that? Who's hanging out back there with some of our loyal Marquette fans?
Because he can really score. Some guys, very few guys are just wired to score like Cam is, and can score in different ways. And Royce has that. Now, obviously, he's a freshman. And I told him, I said, "You're behind where Cam was at this point." I think Cam averaged 7 points a game. Royce was averaging 5.6 or something like that. But he's a guy that can put the ball in the basket in a lot of different ways. So we got to continue to grow him up. He's a young freshman. He didn't turn 18 until late July. And so he's out there in certain games kind of overmatched physically, overmatched from a physical maturation standpoint. But, man, he's got a bright future if he continues to learn and, just sink his teeth into what it means to be a Marquette basketball player.
One of the things I love that you have mentioned multiple times about Cam Jones is how much he loves Marquette, how he loves being a member of the Marquette community. I'm sure there's a lot of people in here who appreciate that about him in addition to what he does on the basketball court. What does that next step for him look like?
Domination. There's a lot of basketball components of what it looks like, but I think, just being the maestro out there on the floor. There's a controlled violence that Tyler Kolek learned to play with near the end of his career, where he would go really aggressively, and then sometimes it would look like he was going 2 miles an hour and he would still get that left-handed layup off. Not necessarily over anyone or going by someone, but you just get his body in between, and such control and poise. And I think Cam has another notch to take with that.
I've seen a lot of leadership from him on the floor. A lot of times the cameras will catch him
Absolutely.
talking to guys and firing them up and encouraging them in moments when it seems like the team needs some of that. So that has been really cool to watch that evolution from him as well. I know that Tom Crean was on the call. I know you have been very complimentary of Tom Crean. And I know that he spoke to the team.
Yes.
What was his message to the team?
Well, Coach Crean's messages are long, so it would take a lot to describe the whole thing. I actually have the video of him talking. It was about 9 minutes. He actually pointed out certain guys. He called out certain guys, which was awesome. Because I always tell, when Tom Crean or Doc Rivers or former players like Jarrell or Jay speak to our team, I say, hey, say whatever you feel, or Wes Matthews, say whatever you think. This is your team. This is your program. You obviously built this place. And so he did. He called out Ben Gold. He called out a couple other guys for, wanting them to be more consistent, needing them to be more consistent. But he didn't do so in a negative way. Coach Crean has a way of both telling you need to be better, but also instilling belief in you that you can be better. That's part of what makes him a great coach. I said this after the game. I said this on our TV show that airs this week. I believe he should be up and around. You might think in 2025 we're just kind of entitled to be in this league, but that's not the case. That's not how we're just kind of entitled to be in this league, but that's not the case. That's not how it works. We were chosen to be in this league, in the mid-2000s, and there were some things behind the scenes that went into that Tom Crean was in the middle of. There's been one Final Four in my lifetime at Marquette. I was born a couple weeks after the national championship. So one Final Four in my lifetime at Marquette. Tom Crean was responsible for that. The best player to ever play, to ever don, the finest player to ever don a Marquette uniform. I'm always asking fans, who was your favorite player? And it's obviously a mixed bag of reactions. There's George Thompson, there's Bo, there's Butch Lee. But the most common answer is what you would think, the best player, Dwayne Wade. There's no Dwayne Wade at Marquette. There's Dwayne Wade, but there's no Dwayne Wade at Marquette if it wasn't for Tom Crean. Another example, I tell our players often, you're not wearing Jordans on your feet. You don't have Michael Jordan shoes. We're not a brand Jordan school if it's not for Tom Crean. And so there's just, the list goes on, the things that he's done, the ways that he's impacted this program. As I said on the TV show, I know people were upset, when he left. That's, kind of probably till the end of time. When someone leaves, people get upset. That's just how it works. But with time, that heals wounds. And I think there's an appreciation and a gratitude for what he did here over 9 years.
Very well said, Coach. Really appreciate that endorsement as well. I want to talk a little bit about the game and how it shook out. Obviously, DePaul is always a tough competitor. They play you guys hard. We have talked about your team at Wintrust Arena, other than David Joplin, who always seems to have a really good game there. But at one point in the game, you sub out the entire starting lineup, and not the starters, but the entire lineup, and
Yes.
then you sub in another 5, which is an unusual thing to see. But you have given an explanation for it. Why did you do that?
I think we gave up like 3 layups in a row, or at least 2. So I didn't like how things were going on the defensive end. With less than 8 minutes left, there was a timeout in the action, and DePaul had 41 points. So 41 points in 32 minutes, that's a really good defensive game through 32 minutes. And I told our guys, we need to finish this game with a level of defensive intensity. And so there was a couple of breakdowns there. So what do you do as a coach when, we're not doing what we need to do? You sub. And I think behind that, Jen, is the fact that in practice, particularly the last 2 weeks, our freshmen and sophomores have practiced at a very high level. They've been really, really good. Royce, Demarius, Trey Norman, Zay Lowry, Caden Hamilton. Caden Hamilton, it's so cool to see his personal growth coming out of his shell. And I love to hear how our fans react to him in the game, because he clearly has an energy to him, and he's going to be a really good player. He's in our 10th cup right now. all right? But he's not going to be in the 10th cup forever. Pretty soon he's going to be in one of those top 3 cups, and that's when you'll really see the full Caden Hamilton come out. But because of the way those guys have practiced, it gives me a lot of confidence to put them in the game. And, you know, Cam is by far, you know, our best player, at least on the offensive end. But I had the confidence at that moment to even take him out because he was one of the 5 guys that came out, and the group that went in did just fine.
In what way does that benefit them going forward? I feel like from a confidence standpoint, you know, knowing that you believe in them in a tight game and in a situation where they can go in and do what you want them to do. And then also we always talk about building for the future, how that moment, that experience can benefit them the next time you guys find yourself in a similar situation.
It's both. I think, you know, you're always substituting to win the game because it would be doing a disservice to everyone in the building, I guess except for the opposing team, to sub for any other reason. That being said, you know, I've always been someone that likes to reward young guys that are practicing well. I like for them in their minds, all of our players, to feel that there is a correlation between how you practice and then how you play and how much you play and what your role is when you do go in the game. But I think more importantly, in the immediate present, guys need to understand there's going to be a level of accountability if you're not doing what you need to do. I subbed Chase Ross out of the game in the second half about a minute into the half because I didn't like how he was defending. He came out, he gave me a look, I gave him a look. He went back in the game, and he was really at his best for a stretch of time after subbing out. So sometimes it's not the worst thing in the world to, you know, kind of create a little bit of a conflict or a little bit of feelings, because the last thing you can do in any game is have a feeling of apathy towards exactly what you need to do. And by the way, this is all stuff that's really hard to do and easy to talk about.
But I think that story that you just told also speaks to the connectivity that you always emphasize, the relationships you always emphasize. Because if you can have that nonverbal communication with one of your star players, they know what you're thinking, you know what they're thinking, and then they can rise to the occasion when you give them the opportunity. It says a lot about the coaching that you're doing with these young men. We're going to take a break here at Motor Bar and Restaurant for the Marquette Basketball Show. Still plenty to come. We're going to talk about the bye and a bunch of other stuff. And we've got Royce over there who is hanging out with some of the loyal Marquette fans. Stick around here on the Marquette Basketball Show from Motor Bar and Restaurant. Seton Hall, and Providence. Secure your tickets today at gomarquette.com/tickets or call 414-288-GO-MU. Back here with head coach Shaka Smart. Seeing a lot of great familiar faces and some new faces out there in the crowd. All right, let's talk a little bit more about that DePaul game. Sometimes you share with us the theme that you use for the team headed into a game. What was the theme against DePaul?
Our theme was guts, which I'll try to give you the shortened version. There's a lot to that. It's a theme we talk about. It's something we talk about a lot within our program, but basically what's on the inside, what do we have inside of us? Who are we really? And we felt like, coming off of the previous game and games, this was a game where we really needed to be the best version of ourselves, and we needed to expose what we have on the inside. And I thought our guys did a great job of that.
You have talked in the past about sometimes you can actually tell how your team is going to perform as you're watching them warm up. You have reflected on the 3 games that your team lost and said that you did not have the requisite connectivity. How has the connectivity changed from that 3-game stretch to now?
Well, it's not that, it's kind of like your heart rate. You can have an average heart rate for the day, but it also goes up and down. Mm-hmm. So, the connectivity, in my opinion, wasn't good enough in those games relative to what we needed to do to win those games. But at times it was good, just not consistent enough. I thought that, first and foremost, in practice, and we have an increasing number of people in the crowd here that have been to practice. It's pretty cool. Oso coming to town next week. I got you set up. Practice connectivity has been very, very consistent. So I think that's a mark of a team that has a chance to go on a run when it matters most. DePaul is the only game we've played, obviously, since the 3 games that we lost. And I thought shoot around, the game, halftime we're only up 2. We gave up a silly basket to go into the half. But I thought our guys' connectivity was quite good on the whole in that game.
So you play on Tuesday, and now you guys don't play again until next Tuesday. It is a rare weekend off for Marquette. I know you can't control when the bye comes, but in what way have you been able to use it to your advantage?
Well, we typically have 3 weeks during the season where there's a week in between games. So there's usually the exam week, and then there's 2 byes in the Big East. And sometimes people say, well, why does the Big East do that? Because other conferences don't do that. It's mathematically impossible not to do that because we have 11 teams, which means on any given play date, a Friday, Saturday is the play date, or a Tuesday, Wednesday is the play date, one team has to not play in order for the other 10 teams, 5 at home, 5 on the road, to play. So literally twice a week someone has a bye. So it's our turn to have a bye on Saturday. There's positives and negatives of having a bye, but at this time of year, you better choose to press on the positives or the advantages of having a bye. One advantage is when you get to this time of year, the guys who have logged the most minutes are pretty banged up. So it's a chance to get them some physical rest, reset their central nervous system, which is a big, big deal that I know very little about. I just know that it really helps. It really helps if you can do it. And, most importantly, reset as a team. What are the critical factors to us being our best over this last, in this case, 6 games of the regular season and then the Big East tournament and beyond?
I love that you talk about that idea of recalibrating. I was telling someone just the other day, for most of football season, I find myself in that fight or flight mentality. There's just too much to do and not enough time, and yet there's no excuses. You have to get it done. And then so it's about this time of year that I sort of get back to that level of, oh, this is what most people are experiencing on a daily basis. So you talk about them getting healthy, but you also don't want them to lose focus. It feels like a little bit of a balancing act there this week between games. How do you strike the right chord? How do you hit the right note?
Well, that's unique to the team, and that's unique to the individual players. As you've heard me say before, there's coaching your team and there's coaching your players. That's not the same thing. And so, huge difference between Stevie Mitchell and Royce Parham, for example. Both awesome guys, both really good players, both critical to us winning. But one's a senior who's played over 100 games, and then one's a freshman who's, going through this length of a season for the first time. And, I think that I don't really worry much about our guys losing focus. We really don't have that type of group, in my opinion. It's more about we have to be on the extreme end, extreme, in terms of our alignment of intentionality. And that's culturally, defensively, and offensively, just the way we do things. We can't be just okay. And you could call that focus, I guess. But just reminding our guys on a regular basis. I actually showed our guys two pretty powerful clips today in our film session. One was on a particular player from the Philadelphia Eagles. Sorry to upset any fans of different teams. Philadelphia Eagles, and it was about 90 seconds of him. He was mic'd up during the game. And the things he was saying to his teammates, he was in the moment. He was in his circle. He was locked in, whatever you want to call it, 90-second clip. And then you just watch this Chiefs player, and then someone said, okay, who are you going to bet on to win? Not that we're allowed to bet, but who are you going to bet on to win? Well, culturally, the Chiefs player is, more in the right place. And so for us, this part of this bye week is a reminder, and we're doing some really unique and neat things with it that I can tell you about after the season to get our guys really, really galvanized around who we need to be and what we need to do.
You have said you want to win the bye, meaning mentally, spiritually, physically, and relationshipally, which is not necessarily a word, and you didn't say it, but I sort of took what you said and made it into a word.
That's okay. You make up words all the time.
You meant continue to spend time together and just continue to be there for each other because, again, relationships mean so much to the success of the team. You also said you want them to think deeply about what you want out of the rest of the season, not you personally, but we, the collective Marquette group, out of the rest of the regular season and the postseason. How do your guys do that?
Well, that's part of the exercise that we started today, and I can't give you all of it right now, but maybe later on. The first step in making happen what you want to happen is being very, very clear in your vision for that. And our guys overall do a really good job of that, but I've asked them right now in this moment to think even deeper about it and update their thoughts on that. And then there's a pretty cool exercise that we're doing with that hopefully turns into a great story that we can share later.
We talked about head coach Tom Crean, previous head coach Tom Crean earlier in the show. Another Marquette head coach, former head coach, Buzz Williams, was in the news this week. He gave 4 pieces of advice to some student reporters who were at the press conference after one of his basketball games. I'm not going to put you on the spot right this moment, but when you and I come back at the end of the show, give me one piece of advice just for in general. Doesn't need to be for students, but it was basically about achieving your goals and how to get to where you want to go. So you think about that and you come back at the end.
I can give that to you.
Oh,
right
he's
now.
got it right now, guys. All right, tell us right now, Coach. What do you got?
Align your behavior with what you want. Simple. Whatever you want, align your behavior with that. Because the reality is 99% of people in this world, they want something, but they don't align how they act, interact, respond, behave, treat people. And it starts internally. So my daughter, every day before she goes to school, I tell her, number one, I want you to practice kindness. And the first person that you have to practice kindness with is yourself on the inside. And that sounds like a Hallmark card, but it really is true, and most people don't do that. That's easy. One piece of advice. Align your behavior with what you want.
Great advice from head coach Shaka Smart. We will take a break here on the Marquette Basketball Hour, Marquette Thursdays, live from Motor Bar and Restaurant. Don't wreck a great time. The Marquette Golden Eagles remind you to drive sober or get pulled over. Visit zeroinwisconsin.gov to learn more. Zero in Wisconsin. Together we can save lives. Wisconsin DOT. Royce Parham coming up right after this, live from Motor Bar and Restaurant at the Harley Davidson Museum. By Wintrust, Wisconsin's bank, the official banking partner of Marquette University and home to Marquette Checking with free ATMs nationwide. We welcome in this evening Royce Parham, everybody.
Hello, hello.
I asked if he was nervous. He said, no, I'm excited. So here we go. Let's do this. We were just talking with Coach about some of the ways you guys are attacking this quote-unquote bye week. And we were talking about the balance of getting healthy for some of the guys who have logged a lot of minutes, keeping your mind right, and focusing on being very intentional about what Garrett needed to be, not the requisite connectivity during that three-game stretch. Garrett needed to be, not the requisite connectivity during that three-game stretch. Can you feel that? I know you're a newer player with this group, but you're building relationships, you're building that connectivity with your teammates. Can you feel when it's not quite right?
I definitely feel that because in all those games, we were just trailing the entire game. Like, the game started off and we were down like 7 or 8 points after the first 4 minutes. So it's like, yeah, like we got to start off like the right way and be more connected and know like what we're able to do and like know like how to guard them each way.
Walk me through that stretch of the game. We talked about it with Coach as well, where Coach said they gave up like 2 or 3 layups, the guys who were on the floor, and he just was like, nope, hockey change, line change, and put you and your teammates in. What did that feel like? What was going through your mind?
It kind of felt like middle school where like everyone plays. It's just like 5 in, 5 out. You know, it was a little funny, but obviously like we have to focus and we have to lock in. Like we can't just give up easy buckets. It doesn't matter like what the score is and like or how the game's going. We gotta be locked in for the full 40 until the buzzer hits.
I know this is hard to like put into words probably, but what did it mean to you to be called upon in that situation, right? He calls upon you guys to kind of correct what wasn't working for the other guys who were out there. What does that mean to you as a young player?
It just obviously just feels good because it's just obviously showing that Coach trusts us and he's like comfortable with us being in the game in these certain moments to like show what we can do and like how to be better than the guys on the court. So yeah.
Coach told us that there was a moment when Cam Jones, you know, he keeps clicking up the chart of all-time scorers, and he told you that you could be there on that list one day. He said you didn't believe him. What did that moment feel like, and what does it mean for him to think that you have that type of potential?
It just feels great for me because ever since I came, like, he's been saying, like, I'm an offensive savant, as he likes to call it, like a really good scorer. So, I mean, if I stay consistent and I keep going and I keep, like, going on, like, the path that I'm on right now, I feel like I can definitely do that, too, and be up there with them, with the greats of Marquette.
In what way is it important to have people like that believe in you? Sometimes, I'm not saying this is true about you, but sometimes people don't know what they can do, but when someone else tells them what they're capable of, they're like, oh, okay, like, let's go for it. Is that kind of how this works for you? Like, knowing that head coach Shaka Smart believes in you in that way kind of lights that fuel, lights that spark for you.
Yeah, it definitely does because he's one of the greatest coaches of all time. He's coached in many great places, and obviously him saying that I can do this stuff, it just makes me feel like so much better about myself, and yeah, I'm going to be there someday. All
right, so we haven't gotten a chance to chat with Royce very often, but your mom played basketball at Penn State from 1992 to 1996. What is her claim to fame at Penn State?
I mean, she was great there. I think she's still the all-time leader in blocks there.
There it is, very
for
good.
Women's, yeah.
Yeah, we lose points with mom if we don't know that, right,
for women's. Yeah. But obviously, like, she made it to the Sweet 16, like, no, the Elite 8. So obviously coming here, like, that's my goal, to beat her and just be better than her in college and just prove to her, like, what she's made me pretty much and, like, how good she's been for me all throughout my life.
The game has changed in some ways since she was on the court. What is the best lesson she has taught you about navigating college sports, about, you know, being out there on the floor with your teammates? What is the best lesson or advice that she has given you about this journey you're on?
I mean, being a freshman, like, you might not get the ball as much, you might not get enough shots, you might not do all this, but it's just go out there and just play tough and then just give all you got and just give effort because that's all you can do.
I know a lot of people, when they think about a young man's journey and how they get into sports, you know, a lot of times people assume, oh, it was dad got him in. But it feels like mom having this pedigree and mom having this played a big role in where you are now. How much of it was due to your mom's previous success?
Everything. She's drove me to every single practice, all these games, all these AAU tournaments, all this stuff. She's been there my whole life, and she's the main reason that I'm here right now. So yeah, I appreciate her for all that.
Moment for mom, everybody. I hope she's listening this evening. Shout out for Kim. When I look around, you have a ton of experienced players that you can learn from. Who has given you the best advice about navigating this journey? Who's the guy on Marquette's team that has kind of taken you by the hand and said, follow me, young buck?
Cam Jones is like...
Everybody says Cam Jones, right?
No, but like obviously, like, he's a really good player, but he has such great leadership. He like tells every single player like what he needs, and he always like tells me like after games he'll like text me some like paragraph, and it's just like some positive stuff for me, and like it just helps me build on every single game in practice. So he's one of the greatest leaders for us.
That's amazing. It's always so important to have somebody like that who you know you can lean on. What do you want to see by the end of the season? How do you want to see your game evolve? What would you like to see? You can't control the minutes. Obviously, you keep putting in maximum effort. You keep showing Coach. He was complimenting you and some of the second-team guys at practice. What is a goal of yours by the end of this season individually?
Goal individually is make the all-freshman first team.
All right.
East, and then just keep staying consistent and then just prove all the doubters wrong.
When you say you have doubters, what do you mean by that? Are there genuinely people out there who don't believe in what you're capable of doing?
When I was younger, no one ever believed in me. I was always an underdog. I was never ranked on any of these sites.
Really?
I never went to any of these elite camps or anything they say like that. But I just kept just proving all of it wrong and just not caring about it and just getting through it.
All right, I got a question here. I guess they ask you guys questions. You put together a little list of things. And when you were asked who would play you in a movie, who did you say? Do you remember?
Who would play me in a movie? No, I don't remember who I said.
According to Marquette, Giannis Antetokounmpo would play you in a movie. You think Giannis got a lot of free time out there to be?
Nah, not really with all the stuff going on.
So speaking of NBA players, who is somebody in the league who you model your game after?
One player that someone actually said this, and I'm like, this is a really good comparison. Someone said Bobby Portis.
Really?
I feel like that's a really good comparison to me. And
what do you like about Bobby's game?
He does everything. He's a taller-ish guard, big. He can shoot, handle the ball, rebound, do all that stuff.
On this list, it also says that if you weren't a basketball player, you would be a volleyball player. That was news to me as well. Do you have a history in volleyball? Is there a past dominating in gym class sort of moment for you, Royce?
I mean, not really, but I just said that because obviously I'm tall. My height has to go somewhere if it's not basketball.
You got to use that height for
Yeah.
good, huh? All right, so let's focus on the bye before we let you go, because again, we have talked about the balance of staying healthy, but also focusing on the rest of the season. What will be the most important thing for you and your teammates to focus on the other side of this week-long bye?
Just, we have to pretty much win every single game if we want to win the Big East this year. So just focusing on game after game after game. It doesn't matter if it's the worst team in the league or the best team in the league. We have to take them serious and just constantly just not lose focus with anybody and just pretty much just dominate any team that we play. It doesn't matter who they are, basically.
That's awesome. It feels like I can feel the intensity as you're saying it that you're bringing to that message. We have talked about with some of the other young guys the challenge of making the transition from high school ball to college ball. You play in a very demanding Big East, as we all know. We see, the physicality on a nightly basis. What has been the toughest thing about that transition?
Obviously, the defensive side of the ball. These players are 24, 25, and I'm only 18 coming out of high school, and it's and I have to be able to guard someone on the court to be in the game, obviously. So if I can't guard anybody, then why would I be in the game? So just being able to just guard a guy, talk, stance, and just be ready for everything.
It feels a little daunting at times?
Definitely, because in high school, most of it was just skill versus skill, but now it's actually just a lot more things, everything else, and just little things that you have to do.
You can't answer Fiserv Forum because we know how strongly y'all feel about your home crowd and playing on your home court. What has been the most, wow, I can't believe I'm here, arena that you have played in this season?
St. John's.
I knew it.
at the Knicks Arena. That was one of the crazy experiences because it's just growing up watching the Knicks play on every team. Everyone wants to play at Madison Square Garden. And then playing there, and it was just crazy. It sucks that we lost, though, but it's just wow, I'm really on this court playing.
That's awesome. I love that you had that realization, the significance of the history of that arena. And, of course, as our loyal Marquette fans know, the Big East tournament is at Madison Square Garden as well. Ends up being a great week of basketball, and we hope that Marquette makes a deep run. Everybody, can we give it up for Royce Parham this evening? Kind enough to join us, share some stories, especially about his mom's influence on his journey. I'm sure she will appreciate that. We will take a break here, live from Motor Bar and Restaurant at the Harley Davidson Museum. Be back with Shaka Smart right after this.
Wisconsin On Demand.
back to Motor Bar and Restaurant at the Harley-Davidson Museum for Marquette Thursdays. Marquette fans, Buffalo Wild Wings is the official viewing party location for Marquette road games this season. Check out the Golden Eagles watch party schedule at gomarquette.com/BWW. The next watch party is February 21st at the West Allis Buffalo Wild Wings. Marquette taking on Villanova at 6 p.m. Let's go Sports Bar. Back here with Shaka Smart here on the Marquette Basketball Hour, Marquette Thursdays live from Motor Bar and Restaurant. Remember, we do not have a show next week, but we will be back with you February 27th. What a nice young man Royce is.
Royce Parham, yes. And I'm telling you, Marquette fans, you will see this guy put the ball in the basket more than you know. I mean, he's a gifted scorer. This year has been a process for him of figuring out the physicality of the game, and he's unlike most freshmen. We've asked him to play multiple positions, so he's playing some at our trigger spot, which is like the big guy, but then he's also playing some at, I guess, what you used to call the 4, which is more his natural position, and his future is incredibly bright. He and Todd Smith already know each other really well, but they're going to gain an intimate relationship with each other in the weight room over the next several months. And I'll tell you what I've told Royce and what I've told Demarius, because their futures are so bright, is it's very easy as a freshman at this time of year to kind of project to the future and say, hey, next year I'm going to do this, and next year, I'll have the chance to do that. And there's nothing wrong with that once in a while, but for the most part, man, we need you in the moment, because you got a chance to impact winning for this team right now as a freshman. A lot of freshmen are sitting on the bench the entire game. Royce Parham is one of the first guys that goes in the game for us early in the game. So very excited about him, grateful for him, his parents, the background that he came from. I know you guys just talked about Kim, his mom. She is a vicious competitor. I mean, it is hard for her to watch us play because she probably has the highest standard of anyone associated with our program, and she has that level of expectations for our team and for Royce.
And she's got a high basketball IQ, so sometimes when you're watching, she's thinking about what she'd be doing if she were out there in certain situations as well.
She does. I mean, I don't know. We'd have to see, other programs, but I think we could feel the heck of a team with our Marquette moms, if we did one of those. You know how they do youth games at halftime sometimes? If we took our Marquette moms, put them in some, gold or blue pennies, and they played against the, DePaul moms or the Seton Hall moms in 5-on-5, I like our chances.
There's one other thing I wanted to get to with you before we let you go this evening. There was a question during the postgame after the DePaul win where it was talking about, I don't know if it was timeouts or just a decision in the game. You had a really interesting response about basically what comes down to your gut and how you have been playing and watching and coaching basketball for so long. You can't even quantify why you make some of the decisions, except that it's just your gut. We talked about basketball IQ a moment or two ago. How do you marry that gut reaction, that gut feeling about what you need to do in a game with the analytics that sometimes push this game or dictate decisions in games?
Well, first of all, I just met a new friend back here that has a PhD in math and statistics, so he could tell you more about analytics than I can. And we're going to see if we can get him to give us a new model on how to win better, how we can go win. Analytics in a lot of ways has revolutionized sports. Analytics has taught us about shot selection and about substitutions. And, I actually just got a new printout today of everything you would want to know about how our guys individually affect the game when they go in the game. But then at the same time, you also have to go by the feel. Because I'll tell you this, and the analytics would bear this out if we were to quantify it. Stevie Mitchell when he's in his circle versus Stevie Mitchell when he's not, all right, which is all completely cultural, emotional, spiritual, is a completely different player. So that goes beyond, necessarily any numbers. And to your point, the gut is connected to the brain, is connected to the heart. These things are all connected. So when you're making a decision, that reporter asked a question about basically why didn't you call timeout? there's a lot of things that go into that. And I will say we all tend to practice resulting, which is after the result saying we should have done this or we should have done that. Or what we did was really good because it worked out. Well, maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. I think you want to go with, as Annie Duke would say, she wrote a great book called Thinking in Bets. You want to go with the decision that gives you the best probability to be successful.
Well, and you have been very clear about your thoughts about the word should. Not a fan.
Well, I'm nothing wrong with the word should. It's just dangerous. You know, if you're a basketball player or coach or, you know, the Chiefs should have beaten the Eagles, right? Because that's what the numbers said, or, you know, that's what the odds makers said, or they beat them 2 years ago. So actually in that case, the fact that they beat them 2 years ago worked against them this time. So what does it do for you now? Is anyone saying should about that game now?
No.
No, because the game's been played. So what should happen the next time we take the court? I think we all know what everyone in this room thinks should happen, but that doesn't amount to a hill of beans. It's going to play the game, and that's why we love it. I mean, let me ask you this. Who would show up at Fiserv Forum if you already knew the outcome of the game, you knew all the stats, you knew everything that was going to happen? We got some hardcore people that would, for sure. I appreciate that, and I would too. But it just makes it a lot less fun. And that's the beauty of sports. And I think that, Jen, is what attracts people so much to the NCAA tournament and the neutral site component of it is that, man, you can say should if you want, but woo, watch this 12 seed against a 5 seed, or even watch, you know, a few years ago a 16 beat a 1, or, you know, I've been on the good end of those upsets. I've been on the bad end of those upsets. So we're going to go play the game, and we're going to put everything we have into it.
Coach, it is always a pleasure to sit with you and hear you with your knowledge and your insights and your perspective. Have a great rest of your quote-unquote bye week.
I'm going recruiting. I got 2 exciting trips to take. I'm so excited about this. I'm not allowed to say their names, but, man, these guys would look good in a Marquette uniform. So that's what I'm going to be doing the next couple of days.
Well, we have come to trust your judgment implicitly. It seems to be working out pretty well for Marquette. Coach, have a great one. We'll be right back to wrap up the show right after this. Jones will be here to join us at Motor Bar and Restaurant. Thanks for listening, everybody. Have a great night.